Are you looking for a first-time reptile and you're thinking about choosing a corn snake? Well, today we're going to be doing the ultimate guide for caring for your corn snake. Hi everyone, I'm Ellie from Ellie's Exotics, and I have been caring and researching reptiles for the last 7 years. My goal is to keep my reptiles as ethically as possible and to replicate their natural habitat. My information might be a little bit different from care guides that you read online, what pet stores tell you, or from other YouTube videos that you might watch. And that's because I have spent years speaking on Discord calls, going to meetings, chatting individually with herpetology experts, and just doing general research into what proper corn snake husbandry should look like. I think I have mastered it at this point, so I want to share my knowledge with you all so that you can keep your corn snake as ethically as possible too. So, let's get right into the video. First, let's start off with their temperament. How is your corn snake going to act? Corn snakes tend to be a little bit fidgetier and flightier when it comes to something like a royal python. That's just kind of the personality of most colubrids. They're not going to sit in your lap and watch TV with you unless you do a lot of work with them and they get really used to you and your presence. But each individual snake is different, and you might end up with one like my corn snake who is constantly on the move and wants to explore. Corn snakes also tend to have quite a high food response, especially my corn snake Kiki. Since she's an albino, she has those red eyes, she's pretty much blind. So anything that goes into her enclosure, she thinks is food. So keep that in mind if you are thinking of going for an albino. They might have a higher food response or be more likely to bite because they can't see very well. But hook training has worked brilliantly for Kiki. I just rub the hook along her body and then she knows that it's not feeding time and it is handling time, and I can pick her up and take her out of her enclosure. Now, it's definitely not easy getting her out of the enclosure compared to something like a royal, and that's because she is quite strong and very, very wiggly. She's a typical corn snake, but I know she's not going to bite if I rub that hook down her body. She's never bitten me. Corn snakes on average live for about 20 years, but I have seen them live up to 40. On Corn Snakes Advancing Husbandry, it was posted the other day that their corn snake passed away at the age of 42. So please understand that reptiles are a huge commitment and you never know whether they are going to be out of the norm and live way longer than you were expecting. So before you get a corn snake, make sure you watch my de-influencing reptiles video. It should be really helpful when it comes to your decision on whether or not you're going to get a reptile. Now, when it comes to adults or babies, I generally recommend going for a corn snake over the age of 2 or 3. And that's because they are a good handleable size and they have grown out of their baby bitey stage. Baby corn snakes are terrified of everything, which means that you are more likely to get bit, and for a first-time reptile keeper, that might put you off corn snakes or reptiles in general, and they are more likely to be rehomed within the first year of owning them. If you're completely fine with getting bit, then go for a baby. They are absolutely adorable, but the adults also tend to handle mistakes or any changes quite well, so that's why I recommend them to first-time keepers. There are plenty of snakes within the RSPCA, rescues, or on rehoming sites that are completely healthy and ready to go to their new homes. Now, let's talk about housing. If you choose a baby corn snake, the minimum enclosure size is 36 by 18 by 18. And that's because in anything smaller, it can be very hard to get a temperature gradient, so your corn snake might not be able to find a spot to cool their bodies down, which with baby corn snakes, that can be detrimental. So don't put your baby corn snake in a 10, 20 or 30 gallon. A 40 gallon or a 36-inch long enclosure is the minimum. If you go for a baby, make sure you silicone in all of the vents or even silicone down the lid on the top and use a front opening enclosure so that your corn snake can't escape, because they are crafty little animals, especially when they're young. For an adult corn snake, the minimum enclosure size is 4 foot long by 2 foot deep by 2 foot tall. But if you can go bigger, then that is always better. Corn snakes are very active animals and they will utilize all the space that you give them. Remember, corn snakes can grow up to 5 foot, So if you end up with a 5-foot corn snake, you will want a 5-foot long enclosure. Your enclosure should be at least as long as your snake so that they can properly stretch out. When choosing the type of enclosure, I personally like to use wooden vivariums, but if you're in America, then PVC vivariums seem to be more common. Go for an enclosure that is front opening rather than top opening, because when you're reaching in from above to pick up your corn snake, they can feel very threatened. So going for that front opening enclosure means that you can practice choice-based handling, where you allow your animal to choose to be handled and come to you and build a better bond with them. Inside of your enclosure, you should have a minimum of 3 hides. A warm hide, a humid hide, and a cool hide. A humid hide is vital for a corn snake so that they can get off all of their shed properly, or if they just want that extra boost of humidity. The warm hide is there so that they feel nice and safe to warm themselves up, and the cool hide is for a similar sort of reason, so that they feel nice and comfortable when cooling themselves down. Provide lots of clutter within your enclosure. This can be live plants or fake plants, or branches or cork bark logs, or whatever you choose to go for. And make sure you have a piece of slate underneath the basking spot so that they can warm up their belly if need be. Now let's talk about substrate. For substrate, I like to go for a 70% topsoil and 30% play sand mix. I don't recommend things like aspen, lignocell, or cocoa fiber for corn snakes. Aspen and lignocell can mold when wet, and corn snakes aren't a completely arid species. They need boosts of humidity when they are about to shed, especially if they aren't a fan of their humid hide, because not all corn snakes are. So topsoil and play sand allows you to tweak your humidity with misting as needed. Aspen and lignocell don't allow for those things, and they can even cause respiratory infections as it can harbour bacteria. The same thing goes for reptile carpet, that can harbour bacteria as well. Cocoa fiber is commonly used for corn snakes too, as it does allow for a boost of humidity, but cocoa fiber is far too dry when it is used on its own. It is incredibly dusty, and if it is ingested when it is dry, it will shrink and expand in the stomach, and over the years this can actually cause digestive issues. Only ever use cocoa fiber or Reptile chip when it is mixed into the substrate if you need a boost of humidity. Corn snakes do like to burrow sometimes, so add in 4 to 6 inches of substrate. Next, we are going to talk about heat and UVB. The basking spot of a corn snake should be around 29 to 28 degrees. Use a thermometer to measure the ambient temperature, and use a heat gun to measure the slate underneath and the basking temperature. Remember, when you're using a temperature gun, it's measuring the surface, not the air. So if it is reading hotter than 28 degrees, then that is completely fine. The cool side of the enclosure can go down to room temperature, which is about 23 degrees. Avoid heat mats for corn snakes, as they don't allow your animal to properly digest their food. The same thing goes for a ceramic heat emitter as the main heat source. I have seen online snakes pooping out entire prey because their heat source isn't allowing their digestive tract to work properly. Deep heat projectors are also commonly used, but they are no better than a heat mat or ceramic heat emitter. When it comes to heating, your best bet is a halogen bulb or an incandescent bulb. The best one on the market right now is the Reptile Systems Eco Halogen bulb, but if that isn't available to you, then the Intense Basking Spot by Exoterra is also amazing too. Avoid the Arcadia halogen bulb unless you're using an enclosure over 3 foot tall, because your snake can't get the benefits from this halogen when used within close range. So it's a good option if you want to provide more climbing space for your corn snake, as corn snakes do like to climb sometimes, they're not completely terrestrial. Now for UVB, this can be a bit of a range, but let's say you have the minimum size enclosure of a 4x2x2. If you're fitting it on the inside of the enclosure, then you're going to want to go for a 7% Arcadia Shade Dweller unit. If you are fitting this bulb higher up, over the top of mesh or inside of a bulb guard, then you're going to want to go for a 12% unit. There is plenty of evidence as to why UVB is necessary and beneficial for snakes. Personally, the difference within my animals before and after UVB is crazy. Their colours really pop, they seem to be more active, and they show a lot more naturalistic behaviours. Now let's talk about humidity. Corn snakes can do very well in lots and lots of different humidity ranges. They can go from anywhere from 40% all the way up to 80%, but I find keeping them at about 50 to 60% is bang on. It's humid enough that they have good sheds and they aren't dehydrated, but it's not too dry or too humid to cause breathing problems. Now, let's talk about feeding. The prey item should be 1.5 to 2 times the width of your snake's body. If it is smaller than that, then you can size up, and if it is bigger than that, then maybe size down. A baby corn snake on average should be eating weekly, a juvenile every 10 days, and an adult every 14 to 20 days. As adults, they store fat very quickly and they can become obese in a short amount of time. That's why it's important to monitor what exactly you are feeding as well, because rats should not be fed to corn snakes, especially corn snakes that are already the perfect weight. Rats have a very high fat percentage compared to mice, so it's like feeding your snake a cheeseburger every week. Kiki, my adult corn snake, eats 1 large mouse every 2 weeks, but as she gets older and her metabolism slows down even more, she will get 1 large mouse every 20 days. Corn snakes can have a treat like a chick or a quail every now and then, but rodents should be your main feeder. When you are feeding your snake rodents, you can dust them with something called Shed Support by Arcadia. This isn't sponsored or anything like that, I just highly recommend it. I've noticed a difference within Kiki's colours, and her ability to shed has become a lot easier. It also has a multitude of different vitamins within it, which promotes overall health within your corn snake. Just dust that on your feeder every time you feed them to help boost their immune system. Okay, and that is everything for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below what your corn snake tips are and what you're going to name your new corn snake, and I will see you all later. Bye bye.